Did you know that some people actually believe Jesus never existed? Some believe he was just a made-up story, or that the Bible was changed over time. But what if I told you there's a ton of evidence both inside and outside the Bible that proves Jesus was real? And yes, that he was actually crucified. Stick around because what we're about to uncover is going to change the way you see history. If Jesus was real, we should have ancient documents mentioning him, right? Well, we do. A lot of them. First up, let's talk about manuscripts. These are handwritten copies of ancient texts, and they're how we know what was written down back in the day. Now, the New Testament isn't just some random book that popped up centuries later. We have Papyrus P52, a tiny fragment of John's Gospel that dates back to around the year 125 to 175. That's within about 100 years of Jesus' death. In ancient history, that's insanely close to the actual events. Papyrus P66, from around the year 200, contains almost the entire Gospel of John, including when Thomas calls Jesus my Lord and my God. Then there's Papyrus P75, dating somewhere between 175 and 225, which includes large sections of Luke and John, including the Crucifixion. Now, here's why this is huge. These manuscripts were found in different places like Egypt, Syria, and Rome, but they all tell the same story. If people had tampered with the message, we'd see massive differences in these early manuscripts. But we don't. They all agree Jesus lived and he was crucified. But okay, maybe you're thinking, well, that's the Bible. What about sources outside of Christianity? Good question. Let's talk about that. Even non-Christian historians wrote about Jesus. And these weren't his followers, these were guys who had no reason to support Christianity. We have people like Tacitus, who was a Roman historian writing around 116 AD. In his book Annals, he straightforwardly says that Jesus was crucified under Pontius Pilate. And remember, Tacitus wasn't a fan of Christianity. He called it a superstition, but he still confirmed Jesus existed and was executed. Now, at this point, some people might say, okay, maybe Jesus existed, but how do we know he was actually crucified? Well, the crucifixion of Jesus isn't just some minor footnote in history, it was a major event. Roman execution methods were well documented, and crucifixion was a very public punishment. If Jesus' death was fake, we'd expect some ancient sources to challenge it. But none do. Not one. With all this evidence, the idea that Jesus never existed or that his crucifixion was made up just doesn't make any sense. But here's the thing, what we've covered in this video is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many other sources that confirm Jesus' existence and crucifixion. For example, Pliny the Younger, a Roman governor, wrote around the year 112 about Christians worshipping Christ as to a god. Josephus, the Jewish historian, not only mentions Jesus but also talks about his brother James and the crucifixion. Bar Serapion, a Syrian philosopher, wrote about the execution of a wise king whose teachings lived on almost certainly a reference to Jesus. Even the Babylonian Talmud, a Jewish text, mentions the execution of a figure named Yeshu on the eve of Passover. And here's the crazy part about this, no ancient source challenges the crucifixion of Jesus. Not one. Crucifixion was a public event, and if it hadn't happened, you'd expect someone, anyone, to dispute it. But no one does. The evidence is overwhelming. Jesus was real. He was crucified. And the only question left is, what will you do with that information? Thanks for watching. If this video gave you something to think about, hit that like button and subscribe. There's so much more to explore, and I can't wait to share it with you. Until next time, keep asking questions.